Hello, everyone, and welcome to Aaron Shack Politics. I want to talk about the latest events that are happening in Gaza today, but first we got to talk a little bit about President Jimmy Carter, who will be missed. He has just passed on at the age of 100 years old. But I want to talk about a little bit of what he said about America, and especially in relation to the Palestine and Israel situation, because it really was something that was close to his heart, that he really felt like he could resolve this. And a lot of presidents have felt that way about resolving it one way or another, but he was very compassionate in some ways. So I think one of the quotes that was just notable in general is he says, "I think the American superpower goal should be to be the champion of peace. We are the most warlike country on earth." And that's very true. We are very war-centric. So his next quote, which relates more closely to what's happening in Israel and Palestine, he says, "When Israel does occupy this territory deep within the West Bank and connects the 200 or so settlements with each other with a road and then prohibits the Palestinians from using that road, in many cases even crossing the road, this perpetrates even worse instances of apartness or apartheid than we witnessed even in South Africa." So once again, that's a quote from President Jimmy Carter. Now, moving on to our next thing here, I want to pull this up. So let's take a look at this. Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya, director of Kamal Adwan Hospital, says, "Now the occupation army is burning all of the operating departments in the hospital while we are still here. The army evacuated the entire medical staff and the displaced people and arrested a number of the medical staff. There are a large number of injuries among the medical staff." And then, of course, a video shared with Dropsite by a medical source in Gaza shows men stripped down to their undergarments being marched on foot to a location away from the hospital. Now, let's note, the good guys don't do this. You know, whether it's America or some other force, we don't strip our enemies naked and force them to walk and throw them in concentration camps and stuff like this. We don't imprison them without a crime. Even when the Nazis were marched out of, prisoner of war camps and concentration camps that they were holding themselves, they were fully dressed in their uniforms and battle dress. We didn't denigrate them in some sort of way. And these are civilians. Like, it's not even comparable that we could say, "Oh yeah, well, these guys are combatants. They're Hamas. So we should strip them to make sure that they don't have guns or bombs or knives." No. This is civilians. This is doctors, this is nurses, it's hospital staff, it's patients, the ones that can move, by the way. So if we dive in a little deeper, I have another video clip here of the patients and doctors stripping at gunpoint and walking into the cold. Because let's not forget, like, winter is kind of in season over there. The harsh cold is what is happening. So this is the last functioning hospital in North Gaza. They've bombed it. They've burned it. It says at least 50 Palestinians, including patients and medical staff, were killed in and around the hospital during Israel's raid. And remember, last we covered what was happening at Kamal Adwan Hospital. We had seen that there were like robots or drones being dropped off in boxes and out of the back of like APCs by the IDF. And explosions were happening, but now this is sort of the rest of the story, is the fact that not only did they have drones dropping bombs onto the hospital, but they were also just lit the hospital on fire and just burned whatever's left of it. Which, why would you burn a hospital unless you didn't want people to get medical treatment, unless you are doing an ongoing genocide and, just an ethnic cleansing of the area? You don't want people to be able to be treated or survive disease or injury. So one physician called it the end of humanity in northern Gaza. Every other remaining health facility in northern Gaza is now barely functioning. Early in the morning, Israeli forces stormed Kamal Adwan Hospital, shutting off oxygen supplies. So what does that do? That that kills people, right? Some people might be relying on that oxygen. Some people might be dependent to a certain amount where it's like I'm getting 80% or 90%, but it's not enough, and I need to be on some of it. And of course, this is December 27th, 2024 on this clip. Cut off the oxygen supply. You can die at any given moment. And then they forced hundreds onto the streets. Military set fire with flames spreading to emergency and operating rooms. Like, why would you destroy a hospital if you're the good guys? Like, why would you do that? Very interesting. So, all the people that want to defend Israel in the face of an obvious genocide, I think I want you to actually look at this stuff and see it for what it really is. Because, I mean, you're literally the person standing up in front of the world and saying, like, listen, I mean, the Nazis weren't that bad. Like, that's what you're saying right now. Like, you're looking at the war crimes that they committed back in the 40s, and you are condoning that in the modern day. Okay, this is the same deal. One Holocaust does not justify another. So witnesses filmed remote-controlled robots planting explosives to demolish sections of the hospital. So here's where you see, like, the APC dropping off the box. And that's Dr. Hussam. And this is a quadcopter. And right here, you can see the bomb. So why are they bombing hospitals, dude? Because there's never any evidence of Hamas. There's never like a weapon stockpile that gets found, or secret tunnels, or, oh man, this was where the hostages were and we were able to take out the bad guys and get in there and rescue our people, or what have you. No, it's just a chance to murder more Palestinian civilians. So Israeli forces briefly arrested Palestinian journalist Mohammed al-Sharif, who was reporting from the hospital. Shameful. Evacuated patients were seen waiting in the courtyard with nowhere to go. Made us take our tops off and pull down our pants. Okay, these are women. That's crazy. So she's a lab worker, Sharouk Salah Khader al-Rantisi. After that, they grabbed us by the head like this and checked our IDs. And they took us out and set us down one group at a time until he was done searching everyone. There were around 60 or 70 of us. Yeah, there's no need to strip men or women naked. I mean, I understand you need to check people for weapons or whatever and make sure, you know, that you're capturing, you know, some sort of terrorist or something. But I mean, this is just hospital workers, man. It's just civilians. It's just patients. So it's not proper. Many of the patients can't survive without medical treatment from the hospital. Other patients have sought care at the Indonesian hospital, which Israel forcibly evacuated days before. Yeah, why are you cleaning out all the hospitals if you are the good guys and you want aid to get through and you want to make sure that you get the bad guys, but you keep the good guys alive and the civilians alive? Well, that's not what Israel is interested in. I can't make it more clear to you that this is genocide. So like many other hospitals in the region, Indonesian hospital was previously subjected to Israeli attacks and lacks basic supplies. This is November 2nd, 2023 footage there. Israel's been attacking hospitals in Gaza since October 2023, including Kamal Adwan. We've heard about this multiple times. Like, it's been under constant bombardment. December 2023, Israeli forces bombed the hospital, arresting Kamal Adwan's director and taking 70 medical workers to an undisclosed location. The hospital has continued to suffer attacks during Israel's most recent offensive on the north, which began in October of 2024. So it just keeps getting worse. Israel also bombed Al-Awda hospital early in December 26th of 2024, killing 10 people. So while you were celebrating Christmas, this is what Israel has been doing, okay? Nothing good, nothing holy, nothing Christian about this. Or Jewish, for that matter. There's nothing in those religions that condone this, other than Zionism, which is, you know, the complete decimation of another people so that they can have their land and bring about their end times. It's not about being fair and holy and kind to others. It's about one religion getting the power and the land that they want and bringing about their version of the end times. Humanitarian aid, including food, medicine, and fuel, has been cut off from the area, leaving the population on the verge of famine, which, I mean, we've already looked at that. Israel's war on Gaza has killed more than 45,300 Palestinians since October 7th of 2023. That's where we are. It's pretty heavy, but there is more to look at here. We have here another tweet here from Gazan journalist Hossam Shabat. He says Israeli occupation forces have kidnapped 240 medical personnel from Kamal Adwan Hospital, including hospital director Hussam Abu Safiya, which we've talked about him a lot on the channel about, you know, some of the things he said and his reports on what's happening. Their fate remains unknown, just like 10,000 other Palestinians they kidnapped from the Gaza Strip. Hossam also showing some images here. This is what the occupation army did to the displaced people in Kamal Adwan Hospital, leading them to Al-Fakura school amidst the cold. Sorry, my Arabic is not always 10 out of 10 perfect here. But of course, you see that they are cuffed. They're stripped down into wearing just these white robes, and then they are blindfolded. I mean, this is not what the good guys do to the bad guys when you're battling another enemy. This is not how you treat civilians in a war conflict either. And of course, you see them moving with white flags and hands raised, you know, trying to let everyone know, like, hey, we surrender. We're not an enemy force. And then, of course, you see the IDF and their vehicles and all of their guns and armor. And then, of course, here, this is the arrest of Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya, director of Kamal Adwan Hospital in the northern Gaza Strip. So, yeah, you can see him going into one of the APCs there. Kidnapping and killing doctors in Gaza are not isolated events. Israeli occupation forces are targeting doctors, journalists, college professors, and anyone who can contribute to society in any way. Their goal is annihilation, leaving Gaza without resources, whether that be hospitals or medical professionals. I honestly couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, it's what is constantly reiterated here. And I mean, it's coming from a source directly from Gaza, a journalist. You can't spin it. You can't make it sound like this isn't factually true when the man is on the ground literally recording and photographing things as they happen and documenting and relaying that information to you. There's no chance for an editorial team or a set of journalists or some sort of media to spin said story and make it seem like it's something it's not. I mean, it is ethnic cleansing, and this is a genocide. So now, I want to go even further, which, you know, it doesn't feel like you can go further into this situation, but I really want to look at what's going on here, and we'll scroll up to the top here. We have from Al Jazeera, global silence and abandonment as Gaza's Kamal Adwan Hospital destroyed. North Gaza's last operational major health facility is being destroyed by Israeli forces. This is December 25th, 2024. This is Christmas Day, okay? This is Palestinians gathering following an Israeli attack on the courtyard of Kamal Adwan Hospital in Beit Lahia, Gaza, in December 25th. So Christmas Day. This article is on the 30th. So sort of summing up what happened over the events of, you know, what would be Christmas celebration for a lot of us. The sound of tanks rumbling through the streets outside Kamal Adwan Hospital woke everyone up. They were already on edge after enduring months of direct Israeli attacks. Then came the loudspeakers ordering everyone to evacuate the sick, the wounded, medical staff, and displaced people seeking shelter early on Friday morning. I should also add that they apparently left people that were immobilized in the hospital, and they were burned alive. So, I mean, that just adds to the further atrocity here. That's like, if you weren't able to move or you weren't part of the staff or they couldn't clear you immediately, they were just like, well, we're bombing the place. We're not giving you time to properly, you know, get people out. It was clear that the medical complex in northern Gaza's Beit Lahia was about to face an Israeli raid like so many had before it, as Israel seemed to systematically destroy all healthcare in Gaza. There's just no way to spin it, guys. It didn't matter that according to the World Health Organization, the hospital was the last major health facility operational in northern Gaza, an area that has been suffocatingly besieged and decimated by Israel in its ongoing quote-unquote war. Nor that was a refuge for hundreds of Palestinians whose homes had been destroyed by Israel and had nowhere else to go. There's, of course, some videos here that we can check out. Numbers written on their chests at about 6 a.m., patient Izzat al-Aswad heard Israeli forces summoning Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya, the hospital director, over their loudspeakers. Dr. Abu Safiya came back and told people in the hospital they had been ordered to evacuate. Abu Safiya himself, who was a rare voice exposing what Israel was doing to the hospital, was taken by Israel, which has refused to release him despite calls to do so from the UN, humanitarian NGOs, and international health organizations. He's a doctor. He's not like a Hamas lieutenant or something here. So, I mean, when you have the whole world calling this out and you're still defending this, or you're still on the Israel side here, like, I don't know what to tell you, man. You're so, like, brain dead in the lack of empathy that's being shown here. The man is a doctor, and he's a loud voice against what Israel is doing here. And that's what's unpopular. That's why they want him in prison, or they want him dead, one or the other. A little later, al-Aswad said Israeli soldiers demanded that all the men strip down to their underwear to be allowed to leave. Shivering, frightened, many of them injured, the men were ordered to walk to a checkpoint the Israelis had set up about 2 hours away, al-Aswad recounted by phone. At the checkpoint, they gave their full names and had their photographs taken. The number was scrawled on their chest and neck by a soldier, indicating that they had been searched. Some of the men were taken for interrogation. They beat me and the men around me, al-Aswad said. They hit the injured people like me directly on our injuries. Once again, this is not something that the good guys do, especially to civilians, especially to doctors, nurses, hospital staff, patients. Okay, and labeling people. Does that remind anyone of anything? When a certain people were labeled by the Nazis and put in concentration camps? I mean, they literally learned the playbook from Hitler to commit these atrocities on the Palestinians. This is where we're at, folks. It couldn't be more clear that the modern day Nazis are these Zionists. So Izzat al-Aswad was beaten badly by Israeli soldiers who made him strip down to his underwear, shown on the Al-Ahli Arab Hospital premises where he sought shelter. Sharouk Al-Rantisi, 30, a nurse in Kamal Adwan's laboratory department, we saw her in the previous video, was among the women taken from the hospital. The women were told to walk to the same checkpoint, which was in a school, and then waited for hours in the cold. We could hear the men being beaten and tortured. It was unbearable. Then the searches started. The soldiers were dragging the women by the head towards the search area, Al-Rantisi said. They shouted at us, demanding we remove our headscarves. Those who refused were beaten badly. The first girl called for searching was told to strip. When she refused, a soldier beat her and forced her to lift her clothes. A soldier dragged me by the head, and then another soldier ordered me to lift the top of my clothes, then the bottom, and checked my ID, she said. So once again, this is not something that the good guys do. This is not how, modern day warfare or an army would treat even the enemies that they are fighting. You wouldn't do this type of treatment, especially to civilians. So laboratory nurse, there you go. That's her. Abandoned patients. Al-Rantisi said the women were eventually taken, left at a roundabout, and told they could not go back to Beit Lahia. How could we leave and abandon the patients? None of us ever thought of leaving until we were forced to, she said on the phone. Israel assaulted the hospital for many weeks before the raid. The hospital and its courtyard were bombed relentlessly day and night as if it was normal, Al-Aswad said. Quadcopters fired at anyone moving in the courtyard. They targeted generators and water tanks while medical staff were struggling to care for patients. Once again, It's all genocide. It's all planned. It's all pre-motivated. It's not, oops, we accidentally hit some civilians in this hospital. This is intentional targeting of civilian targets and hospitals, which are meant to be protected areas during wartime. Churches, hospitals, schools, shelters, places like this. The night before the raid was terrifying, Al-Aswad added, with Israeli attacks all around, including on the Al-Safir building. Witnesses say about 50 people were in there, including nurses from the hospital. No one could rescue them or retrieve their bodies. They're still there, he recounted. Al-Aswad and the men who were not taken for interrogation were released after a full day of abuse and humiliation. The soldiers ordered us to go west of the Gaza City and never come back, he said. We walked through destruction and rubble, freezing until people came to meet us near Gaza City, offering help and blankets. So why do they want them to evacuate the area? Well, it's to make a place for Jewish settlements and to level the entire area and kill everyone there and do what they say they do. They have kill zones set out all throughout the area of, like, if anyone steps in this zone, doesn't matter, men, women, or children, we exterminate them. And then we clear the land so that it can later be used for Israeli settlements. Fadi al-Atane was injured. Sorry about the pronunciations. So he stayed behind in the hospital hoping for help that never came, shown on the Al-Ahli Arab hospital premises where he sought shelter. Betrayed and abandoned, Israel's raid merely compounded the global silence and abandonment Palestinians in Gaza have been faced with throughout more than a year of relentless Israeli attacks that killed more than 45,000 people, Al-Rantisi said. Over 60 days of a relentless shelling, quadcopters, artillery, and targeted strikes on generators, she said. Dr. Hussam's pleas went unanswered until the hospital was stormed and emptied. How does the world allow this to happen? I feel we were all betrayed, Fadi al-Atane, 32, said bitterly on the phone. I was wounded, so I stayed in the hospital hoping that the World Health Organization would evacuate or protect us, but it never happened, Al-Atane said. I'm deeply saddened by what happened to us and the fate of Dr. Abu Safiya. We're left alone in the face of aggression. That's where we are on this story. We can take a look. At this video up here. We're getting ads.
Footage filmed by the Israeli military has emerged, showing the moments before the director of Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza was detained on Friday. Now, this video, released on Israeli media, shows his interaction with Israeli forces as they conducted a violent raid on the medical facility. Hussam Abu Safiya's whereabouts are now unknown. The footage also captures his efforts to help move hundreds of patients and medical staff to safety. The Israeli military ordered everyone inside to flee with only a 15-minute warning.
Yeah, it's not enough time to get immobilized people out. No one is left in the building. The whole hospital is empty.
Well, the army bombed and stormed Kamal Adwan Hospital on Friday, leaving it completely out of service. Hundreds of people were detained during the raid and later released. Many of them described the abuse suffered at the hands of Israeli forces. Sami Al-Aryan, he directs the Center for Islam and Global Affairs at Istanbul Zaim University, and he joins us now from Istanbul. First of all, let's go back to these pictures that we've just been showing of Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya negotiating with the Israelis as he comes out of the Kamal Adwan Hospital, shaking a soldier's hand in the tank. Why was he then arrested?
Well, certainly Israel has broken every rule and convention in the book regarding war zones. Israel is not interested in any kind of negotiations. What Israel is interested in is to bring the Palestinians to their heels, is to empty northern Gaza, and they've been doing that systematically And the final straw is to burn basically the hospital, arrest its medical staff, eliminate and kill and burn some of them, and now arresting the director of that medical facility. So, what Israel has been doing throughout the situation in Gaza is to eliminate the Palestinians from certain areas, is to wreak havoc on them. We have seen how Palestinians have been killed indiscriminately through various ways, destroying them, bombing them, killing them, sniping them, even starving them. And now some, particularly the infants, die of the freezing cold. This has been a systematic policy for over a year now, for 15 months. And it's really tragic that the whole world is watching this with total impotence. They haven't been doing anything to relieve the situation of the Palestinians.
I mean, Israel says that it's targeting hospitals because it says that Hamas is using them as bases.
Where are they?
What evidence have they provided?
None.
I mean, this is really an old lie that has exhausted itself. Let's remember that Israel has invaded northern Gaza and said it's been under control now 10 times. How many Hamas members are left in northern Gaza to come back and claim this? What Israel has been doing has been documented in many forums, and the list of which have been released recently by Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, all human rights organizations, including, of course, the World Court, in which a genocide, a war of extermination, has been waged on the Palestinians, and they are doing it in a way that they would like to get hold of the land, empty the people, and then end or destroy the infrastructure. And the hospitals are, of course, the most important infrastructure in any society, and that's what they've been doing. And what did they do for that? They claim all these lies, all these justifications in order to do that. There hasn't been a single piece of evidence to show that Kamal Adwan Hospital or any other hospital has been used by any resistance movement.
We've been seeing ceasefire efforts limping on over the past few weeks. Yeah. What chances that we're going to see some serious progress before the end of Joe Biden's term on January 20th?
0%.
I mean, it seems like Netanyahu, in his attempt to claim, quote unquote, total victory, he's trying to bring the resistance to its knees, to eliminate the resistance if he can, but he hasn't been able to. I mean, we've seen how the resistance, even a few days ago, they've been raining rockets to various, deep down into Israel, various Israeli towns, particularly in Jerusalem and Beersheba and other places. So he hasn't been able to achieve this total victory. And he knows that he is in trouble because, legally speaking, he is facing all these corruption charges. So he's trying to prolong this war as much as possible, but also trying to possibly please Trump. So he's waiting probably closer to Trump's inauguration to reach some kind of a deal, even though many people inside the country itself, inside Israel, doubt that he is seeking a total end of the war. Yet people are hoping that there will be some kind of a ceasefire in order to get some of the hostages back. Remember, he always said that he wanted to bring the hostages, keeping them the military pressure and without paying any prices, but he's failed so far to bring about any of these hostages through military means.
OK, Sami El-Arian, many thanks indeed. We'll be speaking to you again a little later this programme.
Absolutely wild. Next, I just kind of want to share the title of this article here, which is from Haaretz. A Palestinian father of 8 went up to his roof and was shot dead by an Israeli sniper in front of his son. I mean, this is the inhumanity that we're facing right now. A 47-year-old Palestinian man went up to the roof of his West Bank home, okay? It's not Hamas, it's not Gaza, it's not Syria, there's no armed conflict happening here. So he went up to the roof of his West Bank home with his son for a smoke. He was shot to death by an Israeli army sniper for no apparent reason. And we've talked about how the IDF has their kill quotas and counting how many terrorists they kill. And, there is no difference in their eyes between civilians and terrorists and children and stuff like that. And apparently his father was a shepherd in the Jordan River Valley. And it's just horrible at the time that, I don't think many people can relate to watching their father get shot dead in front of them in an area which is supposed to be peaceful and free from war and bombing and conflict. But I mean, of course, the West Bank is a place that's continually being bombarded by settlements and occupation and apartheid. So there is that. I want to share some more tweets here from a journalist in Gaza, Hussam Shabat. He says, rain under genocide. Something that was once so beautiful has become an absolute nightmare during this genocide. The majority of tents are barely holding up after a year of use, and most, if not all, flood with every rainfall. Today I met a mother on the side of the road with her small children. The other day it rained so hard that her whole tent flooded. She said all her young kids woke up soaked. Their mattresses and blankets were drenched, and all their clothes were wet. Her husband was killed earlier this month, and she found herself all alone in the middle of the night with her kids crying and no place to go. She left the tent, and they didn't know where to go. They sat on the side of the road, and she was still sitting there crying. I tried to talk to her and help her, and then I thought, what if we get her a new tent? You know what's going to happen. It will flood again. This is how babies are freezing to death. This is how kids are getting sick. Israeli occupation forces are killing us in every way possible. And that is as of time of recording. This is 11:02 a.m., December 31st, 2024, that he's posted this tweet here. Also, explaining more of what's happening at night here, Hussam Shabat continues, at night in the bitter cold, I was among the families living in displacement camps in northern Gaza. These camps were like a nightmare at the mercy of harsh nature. In the morning, I witnessed a family whose tent was flooded with rainwater, and at night their suffering was repeated when the winds blew the tent away, leaving them homeless once again. Another scene was even more painful. Families were trying hard to keep warm, using what is known as asphalt, a dangerous and unhealthy method, but the only option available in light of scarcity of resources. Black smoke fills the air. Children tried to take shelter next to their parents, while the sounds of the wind remind them that this night may bring them new suffering. And of course, he just continues to reiterate, remember that one of the reasons babies are freezing to death is that the Israeli government is limiting the entry of tents, winter clothing, and blankets. And this is December 30th, 2024. And of course, a little report from Motaz here, who is out of Gaza. He says, 2024, one of the deadliest years for journalism, as more than 200 journalists have been killed in Gaza since October 7th by the Israeli occupation forces. And of course, there's some images here of Motaz documenting this very thing as he was in Gaza. Well, everyone, I'd like to thank you for watching. I know this is a lot of like heavy news and difficult and sort of dark reporting that we have here, but I think we need to keep up with some of these issues, and we need to share some of these stories and get the word out and get people to understand. You know, every worldwide organization is saying this is a genocide, this is apartheid, this is occupation, this is wrong, this is morally wrong to be funding this war, to be actually aiding and abetting what is going on here, whether it's by buying Israeli products or whether it's by, you know, paying your taxes to send the bombs that drop on these civilians, and the bombing of hospitals and schools and churches and the shooting of civilians, whether in the Gaza conflict zone or in the West Bank. I would also like to thank everyone that has come to the channel, Aaron Shack Politics. We've recently surpassed 70,000 views, over 200 subscribers. I mean, this is a channel that I started 2 months ago, pretty much almost to the day here. And I'd constantly thought it's going to be a bad idea. You don't want to get into politics. You don't want to get into global news and atrocities, and it's a lot of work. It's going to be double the work starting a second channel and covering politics and you know, just being kind of a one-man production value here of, you know, I edit the videos, I make the videos, I script the videos, and then I have, of course, a mod team, and of course trying to respond to as many comments as possible, as long as they're appropriate and stuff like that. You know, I think if you're slinging insults or slurs or, you know, missing the point of the argument, it's really hard to engage. But I want to thank you all for your support of the channel. I think we've come a long way in 2 months, and I think it shows that this is something I must continue, and there's a lot of value here to be provided, and there's more I want to do still. There's some major issues that I want to be sure to cover on the channel. You know, we've touched on things like Gaza and Syria and the economy and tariffs, but you know, I also want to talk about things like gun control. I want to talk even deeper about healthcare, more than just the small bit that we plunged into. I mean, there's a lot of bigger issues, you know, like abortion, stuff like that, that are so deep that require a lot of attention and a lot of research and the proper discussions to be held. And so I'd like to have more of that on the channel. So if you enjoy supporting independent media, and especially one with, you know, this being a progressive lean and a pro-Palestinian stance here on the channel that we have, I mean, continue to support the channel. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. And I'd like to thank you for all that support. I'm wishing you a happy new year. We have a lot of big goals to accomplish within the new year and a lot of topics to cover. And I just got to figure out the formula of like what works best. Is it making shorts? Is it making long form videos? Or is it better to do a live stream and then cut segments into shorts? Because shorts are really what grow a YouTube channel nowadays. And especially with politics stuff, you know, it's nice to get digestible little segments to just kind of keep up with everything, when it's difficult to like sit down and watch a 1 to 3 hour long news show and be fully engaged and make sure that everything's covered professionally and edited and all that. And it's really difficult to do that as a one-man show here. So I thank you for your support. I appreciate all the kindness and the discussions that we've had. I mean, I think you have to have these difficult discussions to get to a place where, you know, solutions can be found. We have to be able to talk about these things. We can't just rule one side or the other out. But I think when it comes to some of these atrocities, there's really only one correct stance on the proper side of history for this, unfortunately. So thank you all for watching. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you in 2025.